Okay. I think we can start. Um, First, I want to say, thank you so much, Dr. Melrose, for joining us. For those who don't really know who Dr. Melrose is, so I'm going to give a little background. Dr. Melrose is a stress and trauma therapist. She's a best-selling author of The 60-Second Fix, as well as many other publications. She created the Brain Charge, excuse me, and a K through 12 curriculum and SRT. She's a well-known international speaker. She also does wonderful trainings for parents, for adults, to be regulation training, um, in order to help others. I believe you stopped your practice for the most part, correct?
Uh,
And
I can clarify that later. Yeah.
okay, that's fine. But either way, when Dr. Melrose was in full
Yeah.
blown practice, she
Yeah.
worked with children, adolescents, and adults. And you can go to I'll put it into the information. Please go to drmelrose.com and you can get a lot more resources and tools, and can download many of her books as well and courses that Melrose has done for us. I do want to preface one little thing here that, especially for those in Israel, will definitely understand that if the siren goes off, um, please note that I probably won't, say hello or goodbye or anything. I probably just pick up and go to the safe room, which is a social, responsible thing to do. Not because we're afraid, because thankfully we have a lot of help in that area. But it is a social responsibility for all of us to pick ourselves up and go to the safe room if necessary. So I will preface, by saying that, but Dr. Melrose, you can keep going because hopefully it will not be all over the country. It'll be specific places at a particular time. With that being well said, for those who don't know us, know me, my name is Yaakov Lazar. Going to be here. If you have any questions at any point, please place it into the Q&A. It will be monitored and we will try to get to as many questions as possible. If you really want to give a live, if you want to ask your question live, please specifically say so, and we will try to unmute you to allow you to ask the question directly. Kol Neshamot works with parents of families with at-risk children. We're here to help you, give you the tools in order to help your child, basically first line of defense, first aid to your child, prior to them actually getting the therapy or the help that they're going to need at some point. Right now, with the situation as is, we're dealing with not post-traumatic stress. Currently, it's present traumatic situation that we are in, that many of us are dealing with. Many of us have children who this may be their first time hearing sirens go off. This may be the second or third time hearing sirens go off. And I think all of us at some point or another in today's world have some form of anxiety, and situations in the current crisis can exacerbate the anxiety, especially in children, where they don't feel safe. And hopefully, tonight we will get the tools to start with, where we can help regulate ourselves and be calm and collected, so we can be there for our children and help them calm and bring their stress levels down, their anxiety levels down, and help them and be there for them. Basically, be their rock so they feel safe, as safe as possible during this crisis. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Melrose. Thank you again for joining us, taking your time, and being here with us this evening.
Thank you. Thank you, Yaakov. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that in the midst of all of this, you've been able to really put all of this together I can't imagine how difficult it's been for you to do that. And I want to share with everyone that's here today how helpful that can be to mobilize around all of this anxiety. And let's face it, terror, terror, real, genuine, absolute fear. And when that activation is stirred up in us and is alive in us, sometimes one of the most powerful things we can do is to do something like what Yaakov has done, mobilize ourselves to take action to make a meaningful difference. And so, Yaakov, I really do believe that because you have garnered all of this, you have channeled all of your anxiety and fear into doing something so powerful and so good for all of the people that are here now and all of the people that you've been helping since this has happened. I know you, so I know that you've been helping every single day. That helps us to overcome. It minimizes the effects of traumatization later. I need everybody to know that not all trauma leads to traumatization. So we can experience trauma and move through it without developing symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder, for example. We can, with resources, by coming together and staying together and not allowing this or anything to separate us from one another, from our humanity, from our families, our communities, our places of faith. If we resource ourselves to stay together and to mobilize in healthy, helpful ways, we will get through this without becoming traumatized, and so will our children. So please know that. Sometimes there is a sense that if our children or we experience trauma, that will lead to symptoms of being traumatized, and it does not have to. So here we are today, coming together in a way that will resource ourselves to prevent that from happening. So I think that's really powerful, and that's why I'm so grateful to you, Yaakov, for helping that to happen. I would love today to be as interactive as possible. I think that's the way it's going to be the best use of all of our time, is when people's very specific real life situations and questions come to the fore. And you can utilize my over 30 years of experience of working in some of the most hopeless, terrifying situations that we've had. So I do want you to get to pick my brain on all of that. I also want to be able to take you through some tools. I just want us to be really realistic about what the outcome is through the use of tools at a time like this. It's not to help us feel kumbaya. There's no way that is going to happen. This is so real and so close to home and so daily and hourly and minute by minute. Let's really be in what's realistic about this. The tools aren't to take away anxiety, activation, mobilization, the need to do something, to feel helpful and to feel like we are gaining some control or some power over what we can control and what we can have some power over. That's very important to have enough activation in the nervous system to do. So these tools are not about relaxation. They're not about, sitting around and feeling yummy, but they are about bringing things into enough balance, tempering how sympathetic these these symptoms feel inside, right? The sympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system has our heart rate and our blood pressure and our stress hormones really high. That's a natural response to unnatural events. That's not a disorder. That's not a disease. Those aren't even symptoms. There is nothing wrong with you as you notice that you can't sleep, or you can't concentrate, or you can't think clearly or make great decisions on the spot, or you can't remember something that you just heard, or you have to read the same sentence over and over again because it's not sticking to your brain, something that you just read or something that you just heard. All of these things are completely natural. And the tools that I'd like to share with you are to temper that as much as possible so that we can bring the nervous system into as much healthy balance as is possible, while we still have some anxiety, fear, and activation alive and well inside of us. That is just going to be true right now. And are there things that we can be doing to help temper that? Yes. And to help bring that into greater balance? Yes. And so together we get to co-regulate, where I'm going to be here modeling and teaching some tools. And you can practice right along with me. I'll be guiding you, leading you through these tools. And you can be curious about them. You can play with them with a realistic expectation that this isn't going to fix things in 30 seconds or even 60 seconds. Those of you who have read the 60 Seconds Fix, right? We're going to be realistic about this and know that, yes, 60 seconds at a time, we can practice something, we can learn it, we can try again, we can on the daily, maybe start our day that way, find moments throughout the day to notice the tools of 60 seconds. And as we practice that over and over and over again, as we bring that into our awareness over and over and over again, it will start to take hold. Over the days and over the weeks, it will start to take hold. So I just want to start with breath, because we're going to be breathing in and out of our mouth. And that's a natural thing to do, is to have short, shallow breath in and out of our mouth when we are in fear, when we are trying to survive very scary situations. And when we breathe in and out of our mouth, that does continue sort of a negative feedback loop, I'm going to say, where the breath in through the mouth tells the brain that, yes, there's something to be afraid about. And so we reinforce, by breathing in through the mouth, we reinforce the brain's activation in moments of fear. What I would have us do when we can, it won't always be possible, when we can, is we want to take a breath in through the nose. And I want everybody to let themselves off the hook about needing to breathe any more consciously than that. I don't want you to feel like you need to count your breath, that there's a certain count to make in and a certain count to make out. Those of you that have learned something like that and find it helpful, I don't want to take that away from you. Certainly do whatever breathing helps you to slow things down and to feel more settled inside your nervous system. I'm just here to say, if you haven't learned any of those approaches, or if you're struggling with any of those approaches, now I'm relating, because I don't like to be told how to breathe or how many counts in or how many counts out. I'm just a trauma baby. I need it kept really, really simple. And I find it much more accessible, to just be reminded of the single most important thing when it comes to breath. That sometimes, yes, we need to take that big breath in through our mouth. Of course we do. That's okay. And every chance we get, when we remember and we can bring it into our awareness, please breathe in through your nose. That gives a very different message to the brain. Breath in through the nose, and you can exhale any way you want, out your nose or out your mouth. It's okay. It's the inhale. When it goes in through the nose, it sends a very different message to the brain. We're going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I'm getting a breath in through my nose, which triggers a parasympathetic response, which is the other branch of the autonomic nervous system, the one that tempers and brings down heart rate, blood pressure, and stress hormones. And that's what we want to try to do for ourselves every chance we get. Yaakov said something very, very important, that our children really do absorb the temperature or the feeling of our nervous system as their parent. They look to us. And it doesn't matter if they're 18, 19, 20, or 25. They still look to us as their parents across the lifespan to get messages from parents about safety. They absorb from our nervous system, however much balance we can be holding inside of us. It really is important that we tell ourselves, as the grown-ups, as the parents, or teachers or leaders in other positions where people are looking to us, we can contain it. We can contain it. I know that sounds, nearly impossible, but it is an important message to give ourselves as we use some regulating tools, like breathing in through our nose and wiggling your toes. When you wiggle your toes, that sounds elementary, doesn't it? It sounds like something we would just do for young children. It's actually really important that we do it for ourselves. When we wiggle our toes, we remember, we integrate our whole body. We remember that we have feet attached to our legs, attached to our torso, attached to our head. We can't just be heads running around out there trying to figure everything out with our cognition. We've got to be able to temper our nervous systems, find an equilibrium, and bring the activation down. And we do that by noticing the ground under our feet. Wiggling our toes helps us to notice ground beneath our feet. So when we combine breathing in through our nose, wiggling our toes, and noticing solid ground beneath our feet, that can help. It's okay if it isn't right away. Sometimes it's our bottom planted in a chair. If you notice all of your weight as you're seated, and you notice all of your weight concentrating on your bottom, your lower back in the chair, you can push your back into the chair to notice, oh yes, I am right here, right now. I am getting physical support from this chair right now. And if I can focus on that physical support, that will give a message to the brain that helps to temper the high heart rate, blood pressure, and stress hormones that are going to be surging through us as we experience this very real threat. Breathing in through the nose, wiggling the toes, noticing the support of the chair. really pushing ourselves into receiving more support. Notice what parts of your back are getting support from the chair, upper, middle, lower. Is all of your weight concentrated on your bottom, planted in that chair? When you wiggle your toes, are you noticing any solid ground beneath your feet? Maybe you can push your feet into that solid ground and really notice, okay, yes, the ground is solid. It is actually quite sturdy under my feet right now. And if I can bring my attention to that and focus on it, and if it's okay, I'm going to, not that anybody else has to do this with me, but I want you to notice that sometimes we have to stand in order to really be able to notice all of our weight on solid ground. You know, Dr. Levine, you may all know Peter Levine is my incredible teacher that I give credit to everything for. If you've had the opportunity to be listening to him and his incredible colleagues, I'm sure they've been also helping to guide all of you to know the best things to be doing for yourselves so that you can help your children. And Peter, a really important one that I think he calls frog's legs, if I remember all the titles of what he has us do, but just really taking a solid stance on secure ground in this moment. Our head races for sure, rightly so, to future moments, to past moments. Of course, that's what our minds want to do. And when we do, we become more anxious and less safe for our children. This is an excruciating practice, really. It's hard work to try to find ways to be in this moment in a sensory way, getting sensory messages, right? Even hanging on to the back of this chair, if that helps us to feel more solidly connected to this moment and the sensory, physical tools that we're being given in this moment to stabilize ourselves. Trauma comes to destabilize us. It comes to disconnect us. I'm sorry, gosh, I never know when it's going to start to come here. I'm going to use my tools here right now. Very, very important. Because this is what happens, right? In real time with our children. It hits us like a ton of bricks. It's here to destabilize us and to disconnect us from ourselves and from one another. And that is what we cannot allow to happen. And we need to use every physical tool in our present environment in every way possible. I don't care if we have to push our hands into the table that's right here to feel more support, or go back and forth like Peter would have us do on solid ground, really noticing all of our weight shifting from one side to the other side as we breathe in through our nose and wiggle our toes, as we connect with one another. We are going to stabilize in every which way that we can so that our children can feel that greater sense of stability inside of us. They are looking to us for that feeling, not through our words, everybody. We can say all the right things, but if we're saying all of those things sped up and racy and activated, which is natural, please, we don't judge ourselves for any of this. We simply notice when we are racing, when we are moving fast, when we are talking fast, when our eyes are bugged out and we're trying to soothe our children, but from a place where we haven't yet resourced ourselves enough so that we are soothed enough, so that in a palpable, felt sense way, they can really absorb that feeling from us because we are holding it inside of our nervous system. A tall order, a really tall order. So please, I am not, I don't want anyone to hear like this is easy or simple or that it can happen quickly. However, if we really practice catching ourselves from getting pulled into a future or pulled into the past, if we can really hold on to something present in this moment right now that's stabilizing and grounding, that slows things down somewhat, however much of a degree is very important, that we slow ourselves down as much as we can, stabilize and ground as much as we can to this present moment that we are in. Our children will absorb that from us. They will feel it. The tone of our voice changes. I'm noticing it in me in real time with you right now. The tone of our voice changes. The rate of our speech changes. The degree to which we become more present, more aware, more there for the people that need us. I can feel it inside of me right now as I use all of these sensory tools to connect to this moment and to connect to myself in a more regulated, balanced way. I'm still noticing, I can still notice the activation. My legs are a little trembly and my heart is beating faster than it usually does. And I am noticing how solid my feet feel on the floor right now, how present this chair is for me to squeeze and hold and feel the stability of. These physical resources make a tremendous difference to our nervous system, as oversimplistic as that may sound to you right now. It is real and true, and that will become more real and more true for you the more you practice this. At first, it doesn't seem accessible at all, and it doesn't seem to be doing anything at all. However, keep trying. The biggest mistake that we make is we try something once or twice, expecting it to, take hold quickly and make, a tremendous amount of difference right away. And if it doesn't, we abandon. Please don't do that with these resources, these sensory stabilizing, grounding resources, when practiced, really do begin to take hold of the nervous system to help regulate it and bring it back into more of an equilibrium, not the absence of anxiety or activation. We are alive. We are alive. And we are human animals on planet trauma. We are. That is the reality of our physical form. And we are at the peril of, in times of war and in times of so-called peace. This is our reality in physical form. And I truly believe that we have been given the gifts of physical resources while in physical form so that we can stabilize as much as possible in a pretty unstable world. When we do, We get to anchor to the present moment with what is right here in our environment in the present moment. That is helpful. What we focus on expands, everybody. Please. This is about being very careful about what we're choosing to focus on. This is a scientific law. It isn't just a metaphysical principle. What we focus on gets bigger. We get more of what we are putting our attention to. So please, let's make sure that we're putting our attention to what is it in the here and now that is stabilizing and helpful, comforting, that brings a more settling feeling to the nervous system, that helps us to be more present in as safe a way as possible for the people that we're in charge of, our children, people who look to us if we're in leadership positions. Sometimes we need to stand for it. Sometimes we need to sit for it. Sometimes we need to lie down. Sometimes we need to lie down on our bellies, on our bellies. Very, very powerful to lie down on our bellies and really feel how anchored our gut gets to solid ground beneath us. This is huge to do for us and for our children. So some of these things sound really out there. I understand that. And let's just say, okay, this stuff is out there. And let me be curious about what kind of stabilization that may bring to my nervous system and to my children. So I would love to share. Do we have any questions yet, Yaakov? Not that we know of, right?
Not that we know of yet.
Okay. So speaking of really out there tools, I think it is very important to talk about the vagus nerve and vagal tone and the importance of improving vagal tone. So, you know, the vagus nerve is something that really controls our stress response. It really does help us to temper the stress response when it's nice and open and vibrating, and the opposite of constricted and tight through the experience of stress and trauma. When we are stressed and when we are experiencing traumatic events, our vagus nerve that goes from our animal brain, our survival brain, all the way down and through all of our organs into the gut, deep into the gut, which you all may know is our second brain with hundreds of millions of neurons, where 95% of our serotonin is produced. That's a happy chemistry that really helps our children to feel better. It helps us to feel better. We really want a healthy production of serotonin happening in our gut. However, stress and trauma tightens up the vagus nerve that's wrapped around all of our organs all the way into our gut and shuts down the healthy production of serotonin. I don't want to overwhelm anybody with too many words and too much science, but I do want you to know that we can actively improve vagal tone in some simple, powerful ways. Singing is one of them. I hope that doesn't sound crazy to anybody. It seems like the last thing we might want to do, but boy, what it does to connect to a healthier us and to help us all to connect with one another. Sing, everybody. Chant. Hum. Vocalizations are very, very important. They vibrate open the vagus nerve, to open it all up so that there is healthy communication between this brain and the brain that's in our gut, to be producing all of the happy chemistry that helps us to feel safer and better. So this brings us to another Peter Levine tool that hopefully he has already shared with you. If you've had access to Peter in the last few weeks, I'm sure he's been out there trying to connect and be of service. And just as his faithful student and graduate, I got to take his course almost more than 25 years ago now. More than 25 years ago now. And so I want to share with you that I haven't stopped using one of his most important tools, the sound VOO. Yes.
Okay, a question did come in. So before we get to the VOO, how can we remember this when our mind is freaking out? Like when a siren goes off, it's very hard to think about grounding.
That's right. This is why these tools are meant to be proactive. That is such an important point. Thank you for bringing that up. You are absolutely right. If these tools aren't well practiced in before traumatic events occur, we don't have strong neural pathways in our brain for us to access these stabilizing tools in extremely destabilizing events. So this is meant to be something we do every day, no matter what. So you may think that, oh, in the absence of the sirens, we're fine. It's okay. We don't need to practice these tools. We just need tools when we're in the middle of a crisis. That is a big mistake that we make. We need to build superhighways in our brain. Superhighways in our brains for accessing stabilizing tools in the height of a crisis. That can only happen from practicing in. This is how neural pathways are made. When you begin to engage in these tools on a daily basis, you get neurons firing in your brain for the accessibility to these tools, right? You only have neural pathways in your brain for the things that you are practicing. If you're not experiencing these tools, then you're not changing your brain's capacity to have these tools later when you need them. So please, you want to build strong neural pathways in your brain by practicing on the daily, morning, noon, and night. I never put my son to sleep without utilizing all of the tools of 60 seconds as well as VOO. So what that means now is when he called me the other day in complete panic. I mean, he was in the middle of a very serious panic attack and called. Had he not experienced these tools as often as he did in earlier times, we could have been on the phone for the longest time and not gotten him anywhere. Instead, within 10 minutes, not only were we off the phone, but the last 3 minutes of that 10 minutes was just him getting to bathe back in that incredible feeling of gratitude for his tools. Oh my goodness, Mom. Oh my goodness, Mom. Thank you for guiding me through them again, for helping me to remember. Because yes, in those really heightened moments, we can forget, we can become disconnected from the tools that are so helpful to us. And so we do need others sometimes to help us to co-regulate, to help us to remember, to help us to practice and bring them back into our awareness and into our system in these destabilizing times. So yes, thank you for that question. We need each other. We need proactive practice to really create those super highways in our brains to have access in those moments. You'll see how far they go when you put in the time. It is that old adage, right? We have to put in the work. If we work for the tools, then the tools will work for us. And that's just the way the brain works. There's no way around this. The brain needs us to practice things in order to be good at things, whether that's playing the piano or having self-regulation tools in times of crisis. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
So,
yeah. So one other question came in. I'm sure we will get to this.
yeah.
Where one is talking about a 7-year-old who is refusing to go to school.
Yes.
'Cause she doesn't want to be without mom or dad
Yes.
at any point. When we're not around sometimes, they're afraid and they become tantrumy.
That's right. Listen, part of that is when they can really sense that our own regulation as a parent is off. Sometimes, okay, I'm not saying that that's the case in this situation. I don't know enough about the situation, but I do have over 30 years of experience working in schools with this, what, for shorthand, what we called school phobia, when it really becomes something that is carrying on for a long amount of time without a reduction in those symptoms. So what we need to know is that what I'm sharing with you since the very top of us being together here so far is exactly what makes a difference to kids who are afraid to go to school. As they come to feel our regulation deep inside of us, our stabilization, as they come to really absorb and notice, oh, wow, yeah, mom and dad are really feeling, not perfect, not perfectly balanced or kumbaya or totally relaxed or any of those kinds of things. Nothing unrealistic, but a very realistic sense of, yeah, there are tools being used every day, all day long. I was just telling Yaakov before we started, I use 347 tools from the time my eyes open in the morning. That may sound like a big job. It's actually a really powerful thing to get to do, to realize from the time my eyes open up, I have so many tools and I can start accessing them right now. What am I noticing in my physical environment right now that is helping me to stabilize, to regulate inside of me, to connect deeply to a more balanced me so that I can put my feet on the ground from the second I get out of the bed and start really feeling how sturdy that ground is beneath me, breathing in through my nose, wiggling my toes, and saying, I can do this with my tools, with God. I can do this. And I am doing this. But I keep connecting to the present moment. I catch myself every time I jump into a future that I can't control. Every time I'm getting pulled into a past that I can't change history. No one can rewrite history. It is done. It is there. But I can connect to every resource, every physical resource in this present moment to stabilize myself so that my children, the people that are in my purview, that look to me, can feel that sturdiness inside of me. That helps them to have a sturdiness inside of them, that instead of feeling like, oh my gosh, I can't leave, what if something happens to mom or dad? What if something happens to mom or dad? There is a part of our children. I've watched it with my son, my dear son, for gosh, not to too much information, but his dad struggles in certain ways, and I can see how, in the absence of having tools to connect with, right, healthy ones, listen, who can blame us when we turn to some unhealthy ones? Okay, so there's no judgment here. I just see over time, when a child is around a parent that is connecting to unhealthy tools more than healthy tools, how that creates in them a sense of having to care for their parent and to not want to leave their parent and to make sure they're calling their parent every 30 minutes to make sure they're okay. So we want them to feel from us that we're okay. We've got this. We've got lots of tools that we are using. One of the most powerful things that my son experienced was just witnessing me using my tools. I never forced them on him. I never made him do them. I did mine in front of him. And I invited him to say, Mom, I think you need some 60 seconds. And I would say, oh my gosh, son, thank you. You're right. I'm racing, aren't I? I'm racing. I can feel it. I'm so grateful you're pointing it out to me. And right there in real time, he would watch me access them. He would feel the palpable difference in me. And then he wanted to be around me. He felt better around me. He got to feel better because he was in the presence of me feeling better. It cannot be overstated, everyone. It truly cannot be overstated. It sounds oversimplistic, I promise you. I know that these are very complicated matters. And so our really sophisticated brain believes that we need very complicated solutions, that only complicated solutions could possibly remedy complicated problems. And we know for the longest time, Einstein said it so beautifully when he warned us and cautioned us and told us that we must reduce things to its simplest form, that we cannot solve the problem at the level of the problem. We have to go in at it in the simplest way possible. That's how we get in there and really solve what feels so complicated, is by going simple, going very, very simple, focusing on sensory tools that are stabilizing for us first, modeling those more than just trying to get our children to do this. Oh, I learned something at a workshop today. Let me, get my kids to use this. No. This is about what we need to do for ourselves so that our children can absorb that from us, and then they'll feel more sturdy and stable to get to school without having to worry about us. We want to empower them with a little invisible cape that is a toolbox loaded with sensory tools that help them to bring their nervous system down. But we can't rush to that. We have to have that in us and for us, really practiced in a proactive way. And then they'll see how much better we're doing, and they will want what we have. And they'll really trust us to show them and teach them and help them to have that also, and to take that with them. They do better at this. Oh my goodness, they want to teach it to their teachers. Watch what happens. When teachers teach it to the students go home and want to teach it to their parents, and vice versa. The kids really are the bridge, big time. They get it. They really get it because they're so in their bodies. We kind of end up becoming, so sophisticated that we think we're going to solve everything cognitively, top down. when we're younger, we still really understand that we're sensing and feeling and looking to the environment to sense and feel a greater sense of safety. Kids really get that. So we've got to give them these sensory tools that bring that down, but not before we have them for ourselves first.
Numerous other questions have come in. I guess we should get back to where we were, when we stopped, got off track a little bit. The siren goes off, or any trauma situation at that moment in time. It doesn't have to be a siren, it could be a screech of a car, it could be a certain anything, but we have to get our certain tools right now with the kids to keep everybody in a nice, relaxed state.
Yes.
So
And
let's go through, I guess, some of those stuff, and then we can.
Absolutely. So let's really say this first. I know it's been said, but I want it to be clear. We're not going to relax in times like that. That's not what we are aiming for. What we're aiming for is tempering how activated we get, right? Because the sirens are going to go off and our heart rate, blood pressure, and stress hormones are going to be at a 10. Why wouldn't they be? That's completely natural in these.
Especially when you have to get the kids out of bed and grab them and take them into the safe room, or if they're little and they're all nervous and they're worried.
That's right. Okay. So what we get to do in those moments is say, I've got you. I've got you and you're with me. And we have lots of tools that we're going to get to use together to help us feel better. I'm with you. I'm not going anywhere. And once we get them safely into that safe place is when we can begin to use those more stabilizing tools for us so that they can start to feel them taking hold. Close physical proximity is important. Physical affection is important. Holding and containing, rocking. It doesn't matter how old we are. These are really important sensory experiences. What I need you to know is that too many words keep our heart rate, blood pressure, and stress hormones going. So we want fewer words. It's not a time for words. The part of our brain that is affected by these traumatic experiences is not a word brain. It's a sensing brain. We want to get quieter. We want to use fewer words. The words that we use, we want to be about, I've got you, we're together, I'm not going anywhere. I know where we can go. We're going to go together. And when we're there, I know just what to do to bring us relief. And so if you begin now proactively with all of these tools, they will already have had experiences of you using those stabilizing tools. They'll know what you're talking about through experience. They will have already seen and experienced that it does help to regulate you and stabilize you, and that when they see you using your tools to do that, they start to feel better just by being around you. So we build their trust, right? We have credit with them because in a proactive way, we've already been doing this to help them go to sleep at night.
Would you recommend, let's say, practicing, let's say in the situation here in Israel with the possibility of a siren going off? Would you recommend, like, let's say in the schools, they have the fire drills? Would we recommend a siren drill in order to show the children this is what we do and these are the tools that we will be using, so they already know that?
Oh, preparation is everything. It really is. When the brain can predict as much as possible what the sequence of events are, what the sequence of events is, then yes, that brain is immediately more soothed Trauma is about the unpredictability of something, that it happens outside of our control, outside of us, outside of our power, so that we feel like we are completely caught off guard and we don't know what to do. And we are so destabilized, we can't find our way back to a sense of stability. So yes, in having practice runs, that is exactly what helps us all to feel like there is some predictability to this, right? This is all relative. We know that there is so much mystery to everything on this planet, no matter how much we try to prepare. However, that shouldn't stop us from doing as much as we can proactively to be able to predict as much as we can, so that some elements of the experience are as familiar as possible. The brain is soothed by familiarity. This is really, really important. So as much as we can make something a little bit more familiar. So practicing the sequence of events loaded with lots of tools and resources, so that the experience is balanced between, yes, activation and anxiety and fear. This is not going to be, the tools are not going to bring us into a kumbaya state of relaxation, but they are going to help us to feel more of a balance between very realistic fear, healthy fear. We need fear. Fear helps us to mobilize, to take action, to be prepared, to stay alert enough that we will be ready enough to take more action when we need to. So please, we've got to naturalize fear. We've got to naturalize anxiety. Anxiety and fear are not a disorder. There's nothing wrong when we have fear and we have anxiety. It's about the degrees to which we have those things. So yes, we need lots of these sensory tools and present moment resources that are stabilizing and familiar to us, because we've practiced them all, because we spend time each day bringing them into our awareness, focusing on the resources and on what's helpful, and choosing to focus on those things until we notice how they're helping our nervous system come back into balance, not into kumbaya. You see? So it's very, very important, the difference here. We've got to be very careful about how we're speaking about this to ourselves and to others, and what our expectations are. We want them to be realistic. Yeah, so it's about balance. It's about balance, having tools to help regulate. Regulation is not a flat line. Regulation is the up and down of the two branches of the autonomic nervous system. There's going to be activation and anxiety that gets tempered by the tools to help us bring that down into what I call a 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Into that zone of a balanced amount of arousal, anxiety, or activation. It's a balance. It's a balance between the two branches. So trauma healing and stress coping, any of what you want to call this that we are talking about today, that none of that is about us flatlining. So we want to be able to be in the acceptance of that as long as we're in physical form, we're going to have two branches to the autonomic nervous system. We can't give ourselves a lobotomy. We can't take a whole part of our nervous system out of our physical form. There is the part of us that needs to go up and have healthy fear. And there's the part of us that can temper that so that it's balanced enough that we can feel stable and present enough that we stay connected to one another. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask two more questions, and then I'm going to get to the tools. I want to make sure we get a number of those tools in. So we discussed about, trying to help, be there, co-regulate with our child. One, what if the child absolutely refuses to be regulated?
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
And I guess the second part of that question, especially if they're younger, they don't, teenagers for sure don't want to be held, but a younger child who says, like, I don't want to be held right now.
That's right. That's right. Okay. So we never meet resistance with resistance ever. So we don't need to force anything at all. We need to remain anchored in our own hula hoop, right? In our own container. We can contain it. So we want to imagine ourselves in our own hula hoop, making sure our side of the street is as regulated as possible. What's happening inside of me? Always know that you can be proactive. You can be taking action as a parent by simply regulating yourself and becoming more and more of a balanced present for your child. So that's number one. For those of us who feel like we need to take action, right? We need to fix a problem. We need to make our kids better. You need to understand that if they're resisting the tools, we don't push back and try to make them do the tools. We soothe our own need to take action and do something by taking action with ourselves. So it's just an opportunity for us to be in complete non-resistance to their resistance, because trust me, if you resist them resisting, then they're going to push harder and push harder back on you. And so we don't give them something to fight against. That's not what we do. We really meet them where they're at. We always meet them where they're at. So what I would do is I would anchor in to my own tools. And as they go, ooh, don't do that, we go, oh yeah, let me be over here, you guys. I'm going to be over here in my own container. I don't need to force anything on you right now. I am going to be here to regulate me. And as I can help myself to feel any better, I'm going to be right here for you if and when you need me or want me. I will just be right here, making sure that I am doing what I need to do so that if and when you do want or need me, I'll be able to do that for you. It's okay. It doesn't have to be now. Now, that's one example of what I would do, is really hear them so that they're relieved immediately that we're not resisting their resistance. We're not trying to convince them. We're not getting upset that we can't give them these tools right now and fix their activation right now, right? They're going to feel all that from us. There's just going to be a fight. It's not helpful. They will immediately feel relieved if you hear them, meet them where they're at, back off and go, oh yeah, I'm so sorry, love. It's too much right now. I'm going to be over here regulating me. It's okay. It's okay. I know that it's me first. I'm going to be over here regulating me. And if and when you would like any help or assistance in any way, I'll be there. So that's one way. The other way is if they go, oh, no, just back off. You can say, yeah, you know what? I get it. I get it. Push me. You can allow them to push your hands. They need to channel this stuff. There's a part of them that is in a fight flight. They're in a fight flight, and they want to be able to get the fight out in whatever way they can, or get the flight out in whatever way they can. And so part of them, you can say, yeah, don't you want to be able to run out of this safe house, run to safety, run? It could be that they have a run inside of them, and they need to see themselves in their imagination getting to run to some imagined place of safety. Or they need to feel like, oh, they can push this, whether they push into the wall or they push the back of a whatever they can that's really stable, or push into your hands. Let them work out that fight that they have inside of them that just wants to resist this and make it go away. They may have words for that, like, I want this out. I want this away from me. And we can be there to have them, contain that. I want them to be able to honor that feeling inside of them that wants this away from them, but in a slowed down, contained way. Now, these are things that you can't just have accessible to you in the moment of crisis if there hasn't been some psychoeducation and practicing of those things on the daily. So it is powerful. I mean, one of the things that my son was very soothed by the other day was a reminder of that, of how our nervous system works. It does go into fight or flight. This is natural, son. If you've got a wall next to you, push this activation into the wall, son. It's important that we can mobilize around some of these things. So there are different things at play here, everybody. Sometimes we can use tools just to stabilize, and that's very helpful. Other times our nervous system wants to take action, and we need to help with that action taking, even if they're stuck in a safe room, that they can imagine themselves getting to run. Feel that impulse inside you if it's feeling like it wants to run, and see yourself getting to run. Visualization in the brain actually fires neurons as though you are carrying out that desire to break free and get the heck out of here. That's hard to believe. I'm giving you decades of trauma research in a short amount of time here, so it's hard to believe. But in fact, as you find your way to Peter's work or his books, or if my books are accessible to you, or wherever you can get more of this knowledge so that you have more buy-in to these very unusual ways of helping our children through crises. We now know that this is what prevents the traumatization of all of us when we go through traumatic events, are these different ways that we stabilize or mobilize. And sometimes we need some of both. We need to be able to get our fight through. We need to get our run through to completion, and or we need to be able to stabilize to this present moment with whatever is in our environment that helps us to feel in a physical way more stabilized.
Okay, fantastic. Let's go to the to some of the tools, especially we were about to talk about the VU, which personally I found very, very powerful. So let's go through a number of different tools that we can use, and the children can actually follow us and do the same thing.
Yes, yes. And this is so important to improving vagal tone and bringing the nervous system back into balance. And that's what as soon as our kids can feel that balance inside of them, just like when we, oh my goodness, can feel that balance back inside of us, tremendous relief and hope that we're going to be okay, that we have something that really does work to help bring us relief. So I am just going to model it. I am going to go right into VU. This is not my tool. This is Peter Levine's. I mean, really, I think it's one of his favorites. I know it's one of mine. I can't live without it. My son is so grateful for it. He teaches it to all of his peers. He has been doing so since he was a young boy. And he feels very powerful. He has helped others to come out of panic attacks. As you know, so many teenagers today, anxiety is very real. It's higher than ever before. It's really scary. And nobody is talking to them about how to regulate it. Nobody is. We think we're going to talk them out of it. Words don't change the nervous system. This is not about finding the right words to say in the right way at the right time, and that's going to bring the vagus nerve down and produce serotonin. It's not. It's sensory tools. We have got to go sensory in times of crisis and trauma. That's the part of the brain that is most impacted, the sensing part of the brain, not the talking, but the sensing. So fewer words and going sensory. I'm going to breathe in through my nose, and on the exhale, I'm going to voo. That is a V at the beginning. The V is very important. That V, you could just and you will feel what that does to your gut. It breaks open the dam that is blocking right there around your rib cage. There's a dam that starts to build through experiences of stress and trauma, where the breath gets cut off. It just stops midway down, and oxygen does not get all the way into the belly. We start breathing with short, shallow breath in and out of the mouth. It quickens and it keeps telling the brain, yes, we're afraid. Yes, there's reason to be afraid. It's a negative feedback loop, and we've got to shift that whole loop. We breathe in through our nose and we voo. 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 And we need to keep going and going and going for as many minutes as you can until you start to notice. And see, I'm already noticing after a few voos, my voice is different. The pace and pitch of my voice, the rate at which I'm speaking, I can feel it. There's something dropped inside. Now, I've been vooing for 25 years, so it happens for me very quickly. This is something that needs to get practiced in over time in order for it to have an effect. But what it's doing is vibrating open that vagus nerve, popping open the dam at the top of our gut, and getting all that oxygen all the way into our gut to start opening things up down there so that serotonin can get produced in a healthy way, so that we can communicate between the gut and the first brain, right? The gut's our second brain, and this is our first brain. We need open communication. We need to connect all parts of us. Through trauma, we become disconnected. Our head becomes disconnected from our gut. There's no good communication through the entirety of our body. And that really keeps us in a state of high alarm, a raciness that keeps us pretty unsafe for our children, makes them feel like they need to help us be okay. And they will take on that job of wanting to help their parents be okay. We have got to really show them, like model for them, like really have them be able to feel from us that we're okay. So 5 whole minutes of voo every day, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day. But you've got to practice this tool in, so that before you know it, it's helping after 4 minutes. And actually it's shifting things in 3 minutes. And oh my gosh, now it's shifting things in 2 minutes. It's shifting things after 3 voos. you give that to yourself, give that to your children. Even if your children don't want to do it around them. We have very clear research that shows that those that are in the presence of people who are improving their vagal tone, in whatever way they're doing it, meditation, chanting, singing, however it is that we're improving our vagal tone, even the people that aren't doing it, when they're in the presence of people who are, their vagal tone also improves. So, as crazy as all of this sounds, please get over it. You know, the only buy-in, I guess, comes from really getting educated about why we have to go sensory, how traumatic experiences are changing the brain, and what part of the brain it is that we have to intervene with in order to really help. If you get enough of that psychoeducation, you may have buy-in to these unusual tools, right? It's not talky, it's not words, it's not top down, it's sensory, it's from a bottom up place. We need to soothe our nervous system in order to get through this. Okay, that is what we need to do for ourselves first and then them. Yeah.
So if a child who doesn't want to be regulated, or let's say they've been practicing, or they feel that practicing the 60-second fix, they have it and they've been trying to practice it, and the child says, it's not working for me. So these are the things that we just do it anyway on this by ourselves, and they see how it works for us over time and over practice. And, like even during crisis moments when the sirens are not going off, if we're just sitting around the table or something and we're just breathing and just practicing the breathing, the children might ask, what are you breathing about? And say, I'm just practicing my breathing and regulation techniques.
Yeah, and we don't have to be, annoyingly obvious. Like, we really don't. It's we're not trying to shove anything down our children's throats. It's a big mistake to do that. We just want to start practicing in for ourselves so that we have something that begins feeling better to them, that they are absorbing. And listen, when you're in that first aid situation, so there's the sirens, you've had to race to a safe spot, you're in that safe spot, you begin to use the tools for you. You don't try to shove them, right? If you haven't been doing them proactively, so your kids don't even know what they are, or they don't have any buy-in because you've never done them before, just do them for you and just worry about them being warm, right? I don't know what is in a safe place that helps them to feel warmer, right? First aid is all about trying to keep people warm, trying to keep them as still as possible, where they can just be in the confines where they can notice, the door is locked, nobody and nothing can get in without our allowing that to happen. Really feel into how solid and sturdy the walls are, the ground is. We are in here now and we are together. And I'm going to be here regulating myself. And if you want me to guide you or lead you through anything, I can. And if not, it's about our presence beginning to feel safer and safer to them. This is how we're made. It's about the nervous system. Children have millions of little sensors. If you can imagine, all over their skin, millions of little sensors that are just highly tuned in to picking up cues of safety, cues of danger, cues of safety, cues of danger. If those sensory little, receptors pick up in a felt sense way, right? Just through absorbing, that you are calming, that you are becoming more balanced, that you are becoming more grounded, more planted, more anchored, that you are becoming a calmer presence. Their little nerve endings are soaking that all up, taking all of that in, and it will help them to also experience that inside of them. And so, I'm just here as someone who has read all the research, put it all to the test, have had successes over decades where this is tried and true. And so it's a hard sell. I know that I'm here giving a hard sell, until you learn this and practice this and have the experience of the difference that it really does make, and you hear from your kids going, "You're different. What did you just do? Oh my gosh." I mean, so many kids say, "Oh my gosh, I wish you felt like this more often. What did you just do?" They're blown away by how much safer they feel around us when we have utilized these sensory tools that I'm talking about. And listen, I have this is over 30 years of a career. Okay. So I have an app that you can download onto your phone, and you can hear my voice leading you through these tools. You can watch the video on how to VOO. It's on the app. You can watch me do little seconds long teaching each tool individually. And you can, be led by my videos, my audio. Some of them are audios without video, some of them are videos, but they're all on the app, right? All the books are there. My YouTube channel is full of psychoeducation around this so that you can learn in a really accessible way. If you don't want to read a heavy, dense book, like some of the phenomenal books that are out there on the effects of trauma and why we need to go sensory, right? There are a lot of books now, a lot of fabulous authors that you can read. The Body Keeps the Score, and whether it's Bessel van der Kolk or Peter Levine or polyvagal theory with Stephen Porges, some of this stuff is dense. And this isn't the time that your brain is going to be able to read all this dense stuff to get buy-in to why we go sensory. That's why I created my YouTube channel. It's why I created my app. I want everybody, and I believe I sent out to many people the 50-minute group ground. I hope everybody has access to that. Yaakov, you can make it
I'm going to be
available.
sending it out. I'm going to be sending it out to those who I haven't sent it out to. Everybody that joined today will get that along with this video. Hopefully, the recording will come out and you'll be able to review it. So we will be able to get that. I'll send that with the 50-minute grounding exercise as well, and more resources that hopefully that will be able to help them. Well, you only have a couple more minutes, and again, thank you for all this wonderful time. So we did the breathing, the grounding in our chair or in a solid, or in a, just being solidly grounded to something physical, which is very important. Breathing, the VOO, which was very important. Can we come up with, like, say, another 2 tools that everybody can just understand quickly, that for the grounding purposes?
Yeah, I mean, it is very important to use visualization as much as possible. And so again, in high times of crisis and stress is not the time to start to try to learn visualization tools. All of this has to be proactive, but you will see, let's say you download the 60 Seconds Fix audiobook, or you have the book and you can make your way through all of the tools of 60 seconds. There are important visualization tools to learn as well. And some of those visualizations are really transporting ourselves, really seeing the details of whether it's a safe container. So the reason I'm standing up is that sometimes that's what it takes for us to feel more stable and grounded. And we need to anchor in to our own container where we feel like we can actively, somatically push everything else that isn't us away. Away, away, away. Now, you may not understand how important it is to actually get up and mobilize and actively push whatever this yuck, awfulness is. The darkness, the fear, the scary words and narratives, whatever it is, right? We want to actively push all of this away and go all the way around, anchoring into solid ground, saying, away from me. We need to feel ourselves planted in something that feels better to us. We need to see details of a place that we want to transport to. Not easy to do in the height of the crisis. But if you practice this you can develop anchoring in, right? Everything else, mobilizing, activating, channeling your anxiety into pushing away from you what feels more threatening, so that in this moment, you can anchor in to the details of a visualization that transports you. And so for some people, they want to see themselves in a protective container, in a capsule, in a spaceship, in a powerful force field that really helps give the sense to the nervous system in this moment. Some people need to experience that as a shield. I know that this is what tests our faith more than anything else. These very real threats to our lives really make us question our faith. And hopefully, when our faith is put to the test, this is the time that we anchor in to that knowing, that mystery of God, that we cannot understand this. There is no way to understand this. There is just a way for me to practice my faith that God's got me. And I'm going to anchor into what I can right here and now, visualize that God's arms are holding me, that He is placing a force field all around me, blocking out the evil that is not me, and really powerfully practicing that in. It's a tall order. I'm not trying to sell this off as simple or easy. I know we are being put to the test. What I can tell you is that these tools are tried and true, and that we need to disallow the disconnect of ourselves, to our God, to our faith, to our children, to our communities, through these powerful sensory tools in the now, because they help us to stay in the now. That's all we have. If we're pulled into the future that we can't control, or we are sucked back into what's already happened that we can't change, we do become powerless. We have to very powerfully anchor into the now with the tools and the resources that we gain access to in the now when we practice that and focus on that. And we call in our Creator to say, I will not be disconnected. I am going to trust. I am going to push out the evil that is not me, and I am going to align with truth that is me, no matter what. It's a very tall order, and it's very, very powerful to getting through these unbelievable times, just unspeakable times. I don't know how I found any words today at all, to be honest with you. I don't know how we do. We're not going to have all the answers for everybody. We can't be all things to all people. We can't. And we're going to be imperfect along the way with finding tools, practicing tools, absorbing those tools so that our children can absorb them from us and eventually turn to us and say, what are you using? What are you doing? You feel really good. I want what you have. Okay, mom, you can teach that to me now. That's how it had to happen for my son, who refused all of my tools. I didn't meet his resistance with resistance. Don't do it. Accept them where they're at, back off, say, I totally understand. I'm just going to be here right now, really working on me becoming as stable and safe as I can. I love you. I'm not going anywhere. We're in this together. Those are the few words, very few words, not the time for lots of words. That really does keep the activation activated. Use fewer words that are just about, I'm here for you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm figuring this out. I'm starting with me. And when you're ready, if you want, I'm going to be here to share this with you. That's what we can do. Yeah.
Thank you very much. This has been eye-opening and I think very powerful. I know there was a lot of other questions that I apologize that we didn't get to. So I apologize to everybody that did ask a question that we didn't really come to answer. I will try to answer as many questions as possible via email. Really, Dr. Melrose, thank you so much for giving us your time. It was so appreciative. I know your time is valuable. You're just getting your day started over there, for the most part. So thank you for joining us from sunny California, and we really greatly appreciate
It's an
everything.
absolute pleasure. It's an absolute pleasure. And I know that this amount of time doesn't cut it, that we do our best and we try to put as much in as we possibly can. But please know, I have so many free resources on the web. You can visit the website. You can visit the YouTube channel. If they're not absolutely free, they're as minimally at a cost
Yes,
that
you actually lowered the cost for a number of your courses and helpful tools.
yeah, I mean, just they're minimal, but also know there are free things too to access. So please do, because it is too much to share here. But I do promise, I absolutely promise. I can say this is how I live. It's how my graduates, my practitioners, my students, many of whom are here today, it's how they live. And when things are put to the test like this, that's how we know they really are as effective as they are. I couldn't sit here with as much conviction as I have about such strange tools.
I can vouch. I can vouch for these tools.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so powerful. And the only way to know that is to experience them and to give them the practice that they need. You need practice with them over and over again. Don't abandon this too soon. I promise these tools will be the gifts that keep on giving and keep on giving and keep on giving. So I thank you so much. My heart is with all of you. I will not stop praying. I will not stop believing. I will not stop connecting. We will not be separated. Let's not allow that to happen, please. Whatever we can do to stay connected is the most important thing. It's been an honor for me to be here for you today. Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much, Dr. Melrose. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.